So this is part A in my quantities in chemistry challenge problems. In part A, you're to determine the number of moles of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen contained in the sample. So here you can see on the left side of my paper, I find the molar mass of CO2, H2O, and NO2, but I just need to determine the number of moles of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen and leave out the oxygen. So once I find the mass of just those elements without oxygen, I sub it back into the molar mass that I had found and multiply it by 100 to get my percent. For carbon, I got 27.27%. For hydrogen, I got 11.11%. And for nitrogen, I got 30.43%. Now that I have found the percent of carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen in each sample, I need to take these values and divide it by 100. After I get this number, I need to multiply it by the amount of this element in each sample. After I get this value, I need to divide it by the total mass of that element, and then that will get me its amount of moles for each element, which I have listed at the bottom of the page. In part B, I have to determine the number of grams of oxygen contained in the sample. I know that there are 22.336 grams in the entire compound. So now I'm taking the values that I had previously found in part A, that I got before I divided it by the compound's mass, added all these values together to get 11.9178. I then subtracted it by the total amount of grams from the entire sample to get 10.4182 grams. So I now know that this is the amount of oxygen contained in the sample. In part C, I have to determine the compound's empirical formula. I already found the number of moles for carbon, hydrogen, and nitrogen, so now I just need to find the number of moles for oxygen, which is shown above here, and I got the value of 0.6503 moles. So now that I have all these values, I sub them in and divide by small, which is the value for nitrogen. So after I divide all these numbers, I get C3H5NO3, which is my empirical formula. In part D, I have to find the molecular formula. In order to find the molecular formula, I need to find the mass of the empirical formula, which is 102.97 grams per mole. I then have to find the molar mass, which in the question it says it lies between 200 grams per mole to 300 grams per mole. I chose the value of 300 grams per mole because it rounded easily to 3, which was an easy number to multiply by my empirical formula. So my molecular formula is C9H15N3O3.